Why, hello there. My name is Mountain, and today I'd like to talk to you about this. And what is this, you might ask? Well, this, my friends, is the James Brand times Roark Road Kit. Now, as the name suggests, this is a mess kit intended for cooking on the road, and it's a special collaboration between the Portland, Oregon-based James Brand, which are makers of some stylish, albeit expensive knives and EDC tools that has gained quite a community, a strong following in the EDC community, and somewhat of a mixed reception, I would say, in the knifing world, and the San Juan Capistrano, and hopefully I pronounced that properly, California-based Roark Revival, which is a lifestyle clothing brand with a marketing focus on so-called adventure travel. Make of that what you will. Now, this set aims to provide, as described on the product page, everything you need for cooking on the go, and it consists of a pair of collapsible titanium chopsticks, and I'll tell you more about these here in a minute here, how they kind of work. It also includes a titanium spoon and a fork, and I'll talk more about these in a moment as well, or as much as somebody can say about a spoon and a fork on camera. And it includes the star of the show, which is this James Brand Hell Gap, which is James Brand's first fixed blade knife in this special limited edition green and black colorway. It also includes obviously a sheath for the knife, and then this nylon tool roll to kind of keep everything together. Now, this set retailed for $375, and it dropped back in November 2021, which was last year, and there was only 140 of these made, and they sold out pretty much, I think, on the first or the second day that they were available. Now, before I get into talking about this in more detail, a couple of notes. First of all, even though I have owned this since when it went on sale in November, I haven't really put it very deeply through its paces for reasons that I'm going to talk about in a moment. So I can't speak necessarily to the long-term longevity of it, but I can talk a little bit about it as a collaboration and as kind of how I think it fulfills its use case, etc., as maybe from an EDC perspective. And secondly, while I certainly own and use knives, and I use them for cooking and when I'm camping or hiking or whatever, I wouldn't say I'm a hardcore knife guy. So if you're looking for a detailed discussion of the different kinds of steel and then the intricate comparisons across other knives in the genre or the area, I'm afraid I won't be able to give you that, but I can talk again about it, as a person who uses knives but doesn't necessarily go out and bayonet wood to build log cabins in the wood with my bushcraft buddies. All right, with that out of the way, let's talk about who I think this set is for and who it's not for. So this is going to be a pretty short section, my friends, because in terms of who I think this set is for, it's really the only person I could ever recommend this set to is going to be somebody who really, really likes the Hell Gap. I do. Actually, it's a great knife. I think many people would like it. But wants it, and they like the black, but they also like that OG micarta green, green micarta. And that's me. I like it. That's not why I picked up this set, but this is the only way you can get this colorway, right? They have generally three other colorways available on their site, but none are in this exact colorway. Beyond that, my friends, I don't think that this set, and I guess that brings us to who this set is not for, I don't think this set is a good buy for really anyone else. I can't really recommend it. Unless there's a secret cult of Roark Revival fanatics that I don't know out there, in which case if y'all exist, then maybe that's the reason to buy this, or super hardcore James Brand junkies. But even then, if you're a hardcore James Brand junkie, I don't recommend you buy this. I'll talk about why in a moment here. I really can't recommend this as a set for people who are actually looking for a good road kit, road use mess kit. And I'll talk about better options here in a moment. Alrighty, so now before we get into the overview all of the set, I've kind of alluded, as I just mentioned here, that this is not going to be a great choice for most people. And I think there's three main criticisms that I have about this set. Now, number one is the quality of the contents. Now, everything except for the Hell Gap, so let's leave this aside here, everything except for this knife, all of this is straight up bargain basement Alibaba, AliExpress junk. It is literally, I went on Alibaba and I found these exact items for sale on there from generic manufacturers based in China. And it's just exactly from here. And you can see and feel that in the items when you pick them up. Take a look at this fork. You can see that the tines are bent. This is how it came. And the reason it is because it's so thin and so cheap. You feel that the second I picked up, the thing that actually made me get on Alibaba and look that up is as soon as I picked up these chopsticks, I was like, these feel incredibly cheap. I bet you they got these from Alibaba, and sure enough, with 2 minutes of searching, I found them. And same thing for the spoon here, and then the sheath feels really, really cheap. So number one criticism is quality. Number two is the use case appropriateness. Now look, this thing, aims to be like everything you need for the road. I'll talk about that in a moment from their product page, but like in reality, like it's very unusual that you're gonna need both a spoon, a fork, and chopsticks and a knife. Like the chopsticks are kind of an odd addition. Now I live in a country where, like, you know, I've used chopsticks since I was born. Chopsticks is completely fine, but it's an odd combination to have something, you know, as a counterpoint. I'd be like, what are you talking about, Mountain? Like, you know, a spatula. I cook on the road a lot, and I'll tell you what, a spatula is incredibly useful. We'll talk about this in a moment here. And finally, certainly more useful than chopsticks. And finally, like price to value. Everything is overpriced for what you get here. And that's kind of related to number one, and I'll get into some detail on that here, but I do think that oftentimes, while pricing is subjective, you know, there's a tangible and an intangible component to what you're paying for when you're paying for a product. You know, tangible things are like the materials, like the utilities, stuff like that. And then the intangibles are going to be things like the design premium, the brand premium, the marketing premium, if a brand has a certain amount of cachet or whatever here. And I don't think that even including those, you know, intangibles, I don't think that the value is here, certainly for the price. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So now let's talk about the contents of this set. So we'll start with these chopsticks here. As I mentioned, they are two, well, I mean, it's a set of collapsible chopsticks. And when I say they're collapsible, what it is they've got this, you've got their logo on the front there, the James brand and the Roark Revival. And there's this little pull-out plug at the end. And it's a very cheap, when I talk about cheapness, this is what I mean. First thing you'll feel is like how cheaply attached this rubber is. Like it doesn't do a good job of keeping the cap in there. And it feels like it comes right out like this. You do is you pull these out, and then inside you've got these two wooden pieces. You pull them out. This feels very light, very, very cheap. And then you screw them into the end here. And then you screw them in like this. And you screw this in like this here. And then you put the plug into the end here. Kind of just fits in there loosely. It's not very great. Doesn't feel very particularly like secure. And then you've got like these chopsticks that you can kind of use. Now, as I mentioned, when I picked them up, I was like, wow, these feel super cheap. And when I say they feel super cheap, there's a couple things here. Number one, like the ends of, like the wooden parts of it don't have any real finish on them. They're just kind of like, it's just whatever you would get. Like disposable chopsticks are about the quality of disposable chopsticks. All obviously made with a slightly harder wood than, like, you know, a disposable chopstick. Just blunt ends, which is not necessarily bad, but there's different styles of chopsticks. I don't particularly like the blunt end ones. There's no like, you know, like grip or anything cut out of here so that you might be able to like grip food more easily, which is a very useful thing in kind of cooking use chopsticks. Again, it depends on your country, but very often cooking use chopsticks will have some little grips or little, I don't know how to say, like bits cut here for extra grip. And then this part being so light, the balance feels a little bit off in the hand when you use it. And again, you know, it's immediately noticeable. And like I mentioned, also sloppy executional details, the way that there's this little step here where the chopstick attaches, or the way that you can even see how it's sort of just riveted in there with this little hole just punched in there like that. Well, when you say Mountain, that's a lot of words that you've just expounded upon when it comes to chopsticks, convincing me or telling me that it's cheap. But what is a quality collapsible titanium chopstick like? Great question, my friend. So this here is the Snow Peak. I forget exactly the term. These are the ones that I use. I actually have several sets of these. I use these a lot. Hopefully I've cleaned them well after the last time I used them. These are ones that I use when I'm like, you know, car camping or whatever. These are also made of titanium, but right away, my friends, you can see that there's just a much higher degree of execution and polish here. So first thing is, you'll notice there's two rubber gaskets here. It just secures a lot, you know, more firmly in here. This tip comes out. It's screwed into this little cap so you don't lose it, right? Whereas this thing, like I actually had it come out and then I had to like go look for it because it's so tiny. This thing screws in there, so you're not gonna, you know, lose it so easily. And then it unscrews from here. And then the attachment part where it fits in is a lot more like well built or more refined from my perspective anyway. The seating and the mating of that is quite good. And then also like there's no like step, it's just very, very smooth. The balance feels a lot better on these chopsticks as well. And these are available in 2 different sizes. The length of chopsticks is also important, depending on depending on your hand size or what you're trying to use them for. So in this case here, like I just feel if the balance feels a lot better, the execution and the materials are better. Again, these are thinner, which I happen to prefer. Like that's very much like a, a preference thing. These also don't have the rib cuts at the end there, but these aren't intended for cooking per se, though you obviously can use them. They're more for eating. When you compare these 2 chopsticks, like the difference in quality is immediately apparent from the touch, the execution, the design, everything. And these are just far superior. They also come with their own sheath. Now, these things, I mentioned that I found them on Alibaba. I'll put that actually here on the screen here so you can actually go take a look. These are what, about $6.20 on Alibaba if you wanted them. And then these here, the Snow Peak ones, these are $40. So obviously, much more expensive, but we'll talk about why actually that's a better deal in my opinion in a little while here. So $6.20, keep that in mind, folks. Next, let's talk about this spoon and the fork. The spoon and the fork similarly came from Alibaba. And I'm going to show that here on the video. I'll put that on the video here in a moment here. So you can see these are from Alibaba, almost exactly the same ones, or maybe certainly the same ones, same cutout, same shaping or whatever, same dimensions. I even measured them. You look at this fork here and like, you can see the tines are bent. This is how it came. It feels thin and cheap because it is thin and cheap. And the same thing with the spoon. Like, there's a reason for skeletonizing things when you want to make them light. It's often the same reason that one might invest in titanium cookware, which is one cares about weight. But weight is clearly not a design consideration in this heavy thing. So in that case, it becomes a question of like, well, why are you skeletonizing it? And also you can skeletonize things and I'll still have it be executed well, not like this cheap stuff here. This is clearly not for weight savings, right? Put this here. On Alibaba, this thing is about $7 to $11, these spoons, yeah? Again, I'm not shilling for Snow Peak. I just happen to own this stuff because I use them and they're very good quality. These are the Snow Peak titanium spoon and knife set. Again, comes with its own sheath. Just much more solid, like, this thing, like you could see how it doesn't do that, right? This is a very solid piece of titanium. There's no skeletonization in here because again, there's no real reason for that. This is a very solid handle. Look, at the end of the day, a spoon is a spoon. I'm not gonna like pretend that like one has superior, like, I don't know, like concaveness or bowl depth or whatever, like they'll both work. But the feeling is just, if quality and execution is just much higher with these. These are only $20 actually, depending on where you get them. So, the price gap there is much smaller. Here. And it's just really disappointing to see them just basically taking this Alibaba stuff and then, just shipping it. And the star of the show, which is the Hell Gap. Now, as I mentioned, I'm not a super big knife guy, but this is a nice knife. I happen to like the Hell Gap quite a lot. I've wanted to pick one up for a while, and I was really glad to see this colorway, which is why I jumped on this set. One of the reasons why I jumped on this set. It's a full tang knife. It's got a nice grip in terms of like, there's a little piece here that prevents your finger from like slipping into the path of the blade when you're choking down on it. A little bit of knurling or kind of chimping here to kind of give you some purchase when you're kind of really pushing down on the knife. Lanyard hole, and then like a full tang construction. Micarta scales that still grip pretty well when it's wet. And overall, like, I really like this knife. You've got the the Roark logo on one side, the James brand logo on the other, and then the little icon here. Nice size both for use as like a camp cook knife and as a camp knife in general. The sheath is okay. It honestly felt a little bit cheap to me. Like when I got it, like you can see there's a hole there. I don't know if that's on purpose for drainage or what, because mine had like little bits of plastic that came out when I first got this knife. But it's fine. There's holes here in the rivets so that you can, like, I guess, like, lace it to your thing. If you need to like be ready to fight a bear or something like that, you can do that. I don't do that. I just like, drop it to in a pocket, in a backpack pocket, or in a like the bucket I have all my different like cooking stuff in when I go out. Yeah, it's just overall, like, I think a very nicely built knife. And I certainly like it, and I definitely think that it's probably the one, it is the one thing in this set that I think is the star of the show and worth its money. I will briefly compare, conversely, as I was kind of talking about like the different, the chopsticks and the spoon and all of that, we can briefly talk about how that knife compares to what my right now being, currently being used solution for like cooking and kind of camp cooking chores is this Snow Peak folding cutting board, which has this knife attached with a magnet here. And then this is sort of like a, it's like a cheap steel, but it gets the job done. It's a little bit flexible, like it loses its edge fairly quickly, but it also can be sharpened fairly quickly. Not a full tang, plastic, grip, so like it will get slippery when it's wet. It's fine, but there's no comparison, I think, like between this knife and this knife in terms of like just the overall quality, which one I would rather use, on a regular basis. Again, the fact that this sort of like, magnetically locks in and stores inside of the cutting board is for me a plus. If this one did that, I would absolutely be using this one in here. But just kind of compare that, how I feel like this knife has good inherent qualities and designs versus these drop shipped pieces of junk. Now, when I look at this tool sheath, or tool roll, it's okay. It's generic, it's cheap. I didn't quite understand what this thing was for. Maybe you could put like a sharpening stone in there. There's this clip or like a grommet so you can, I don't know, attach something to, I don't know what. This thing folds over to protect the contents of the sheath, or of the tool roll. This thing folds in here and then rolls like this. And it's okay, right? It's a tool roll. It's supposed to look heritagey. It feels kind of cheap because that's the material is cheap. This, you can find a generic one on Amazon, or I bought it for like $5. It secures with this leather wrap that just kind of like rolls like that and ties shut. I've had this again since November. It still like sheds this black bits because it's like really cheap leather just all over every time you open or close it, which is a little bit disappointing, but it gets the job done. So now let's talk about the 3 criticisms I had of the set, which is the quality. I already talked about the quality and just how disappointing it was when I touched these different tools, and how it's such a disappointing experience that's immediately where my mind went to, which is like, this is just like relabeled junk from the cheapest manufacturer possible. The knife felt good. I won't rehash that, but what I will talk a little about is the selection of tools versus case appropriateness. Now, when you read the product release product story, they say, and this is verbatim here, the collaboration was born out of conversations about life on the road. What tools do you need? What are the problems that you experience currently? It quickly became clear that the camp kitchen was going to be our focus. When you're outside and things are a bit free-flowing, it's hard to keep track of all of your camp kitchen gear together and at the ready. The Road Kit is designed to be that one piece of kit that you rely on. One thing that has everything you need and nothing you don't. And I mentioned this before, but like I cook on the road, I cook outside, I cook a car camp, I camp, and like, I never needed chopsticks and a spoon and a fork together, never ever. And again, I live in a country where I've been using chopsticks since birth. So it's not like I'm against chopsticks. It's just sort of like, if that's your product brief, that's an odd thing. And then in fact, and I'll see if I can put this photo up here, on that right below or above that blurb, they have a photo of a guy stirring diced potatoes in a stainless steel pan with the knife. And that's just, first of all, what a great way of destroying the edge of your knife by scraping it on a pan. And secondly, like, a knife is not a good diced potato stirrer. And you see that too, like in bushcraft videos, like the guys will go out in the woods and they got like their one knife, and then then they have to pick up like a muddy stick from the ground and try and use that to like flip a steak, or like, pick up a scrambled egg with like a knife, or like a fried egg with a knife. And it's like, what we use spatulas for that, and then like a spatula's worth its weight in gold. The very first time I ever went car camping or tried like really, or went camping when like was really cooking, as opposed to like cold soak or like, if it was freeze-dried meals or whatever, I was like properly preparing something. I was like, man, I wish I had brought a spatula. Ever since then, I brought a spatula. There's a little collapsible spatulas here. It doesn't even have to be this fancy. It could just be like a little wooden spatula that would immediately, I think, up the utility of this for a so-called road kit. Doesn't have to be fancy, like I said. So for me, like, I didn't feel like that product brief, as breathy as it was, really was reflected in the assortment of the tools that they got. Just overall. Also, tool roll I felt was a little bit messy. It's not that this is a bad combination, it's just that I don't think that this is the optimal assortment of tools for what they were setting out to do. And finally, thoughts on maybe my thoughts on like the price and the value, which is connected really to number one to a certain extent, right? As I mentioned, like the star of the show is the Hell Gap. And this thing already has a certain amount of a design premium built into it at $275. It's expensive, but I certainly think, like, for me, this is worth it, right? Because it has that design premium, it has that maybe, materials are nice, etc. There are certainly very competent fixed blades that are less than that, that'll probably perform this as much. But again, like I was saying, there's a design premium in there that for me is worth paying. And I think that that's, important, right? Like, there are tangible components to evaluation paradigm, and then there are intangible components such as design premium, marketing premium, brand cachet. I think a lot of luxury brands, rely heavily on that, etc. Right? The problem that I have here is that these are generic Alibaba things from like the lowest common denominator manufacturers in China. There's no design premium here at all. Like, there's none. It's exactly verbatim what you can buy for $6 or for $7 from Alibaba. And on top of that, like, I don't think that there's a marketing premium or a brand premium. Again, unless I'm like seriously misunderstanding the immense popularity of Roark, and there's like this cult of people who are like, just like, oh yeah, Roark is my jam and it's worth paying crazy amounts of money for it. Like, I don't see that in here, right? And like I said, this one already has its design premium in here. So let's talk a little bit about that. Now, again, pricing is very subjective and depends on your pricing, paradigm, your valuation paradigm. But like I said, I don't think it, regardless of that, I don't think that this can justify. This set, $375. This knife, which comes with its own built-in design premium if you buy it by itself at $275, $275, means this has to be worth $100. But this is $6, and this is $7, and this is maybe $5 if you were to buy them the exact same things on Alibaba yourself. So that clearly doesn't live up to that. Now, obviously, companies need to make money, and I'm not against anybody making money, but like, there's nothing to justify why you're making money here, because you didn't add any value into this equation. You didn't add a value to it with design. You didn't add value to it with like your marketing, or maybe that's what, this poorly thought out thing that shows a guy using a knife like a spatula is supposed to be, the road kit, all that. But like, I don't see that in here. And now, to drive that point home even more, take a look at these far superior in terms of design, execution, build, and materials. Snow Peak chopsticks, $40, yeah? And then these, again, same thing, far superior Snow Peak, fork and spoon, also titanium, both with sheaths. This one, $20. This is $60. And this is $275, right? You can buy these things, and even like a cheap sheath or a cheap tool if you want, and you still come out ahead in terms of pricing than if you got this thing, except you get a far superior in every aspect set of tools from here. So the price, the value is not there from any way that I can say. You could even throw in like a folding spatula or something like that. You still would come out ahead on pricing and far ahead in quality. So that, brings me to this question then, which is like, how does this collaboration stack up against other types of collaborations? And why do people buy collaborations? Why do companies do collaborations? I won't get into why companies do collaborations, but I can talk a little bit about how this collaboration stacks up against actually, to be specific, other James Brand collaborations. So I like James Brand, right? Like I've got some of their stuff here, like yes, it's a little expensive, but they have this kind of nice marketing position where they're like saying like, listen, we're expensive, but we've got the design chops and that's the premium that you're paying for. And for me, like that resonates, right? So I even have like a little stupid titanium like canister with like hipster flavored like toothpicks, because I'm like, yeah, I need some flavored bougie toothpicks in my life, and I like this. I just like it as an object. You know, I don't need it, I like it. The Elko actually has a really handy little like slip joint knife that's nice and made out of titanium. I like the design, and it works great. Like this is actually a good tool and good design for me. That's a win. And then like even like this crazy like $60 James Brand carabiner, titanium. It's nice. You can certainly get like much better carabiners for less money, but the design premium's there. It looks good, and I'm like, yeah, okay, this is worth something I pay for. So I like James Brand, right? Even for like, you know, it's slightly high price points. Let's look at something like this. This is the James Brand times Carryology. I think it's called the Rover capsule. I'll put the exact name here. This is one of the first things I ever reviewed on my channel, and it was like a travel-oriented set of 3 EDC tools. And what I liked about this is, first of all, everything in here was designed by James Brand. Like this is based off of their Ellis, except they actually went through, they designed like their first folding scissors in here. They've never had these in any other toolkit as far as I remember, as far as I know. They made it for this because it was a travel use case. They wanted you to be able to bring it through TSA on this. Like this thing was their Rover capsule before they actually introduced this, or the their screwdriver Cash River or whatever. Pardon me, Cash River. They actually introduced it first in this setup, in this kit. You know, it's got the little driver bits inside and stuff, so you can like, you know, screw things or whatever with it. And look, it had problems, but like they clearly designed it and then went on to become one of their regular products. I like that. And then the Stillwell pen that they had here is actually, I like these a lot. I actually have several of these in different colors that I use as like my normal little kind of, you know, travel stash pen or whatever. And then on top of that, they went and they collaborated with like, you know, Skint, which is this small business that makes custom sheaths, for a custom sheath that fits right with this. Like, I like that. That is so on point. Like, these things probably weren't manufactured in the US or wherever, but like, I like that it kind of resonated with the brand image that they're building. This kind of US, you know, small town or small business kind of like ethos, and like, it was good. Like, I feel like this set had problems, but as a collaboration, like, yeah, it was playing to like its use case in terms of like the tool selection. Again, not perfect, but you know, they were at least in the spirit there. And in terms of like the way that they designed these things, it was clear what, you know, Carryology was bringing to this collaboration. It was clear what James was bringing to this, okay? Here's another example. I'm wearing here this James Brand times Timex field watch. I like this collaboration watch a lot. This thing sold out right away. And now there's people charging crazy amounts on eBay or whatever for them, like $2,000, something like that. I think this thing was like $400 something when it released. It's not worth $2,000, but it's a great watch. It's a field watch. It's made out of titanium. It's an automatic, which isn't really nice. And I think, like, you know, it even has things like a nice like see-through case back. I love the way that the face looks and the hands look. You know, just beautiful. Certainly not the cheapest field watch out there. There are cheaper like Seiko ones that even, you know, arguably offer slightly more like function. Although I personally think that this is, you know, a little bit more beautiful, especially the titanium. But then there are also much more expensive ones, like those, like, you know, like the khaki Hamilton or whatever is like a, you know, like easily much more than this, but offers probably, but even, I don't know, it might technically offer slightly more features like hacking seconds or whatever, but like I personally like the look of this a lot. And I think like the design premium is really easy to justify on this one. I personally would have paid even more than, you know, what it was asking for at retail. Like, and it's clear, like, it, you know, it takes what like Timex was bringing with like their Expedition series of field watches. It brings that James touch in terms of the materials and the color and the design and the NATO strap. But yeah, like, I love that even these bits are titanium. Like, and it was a really nice, like, marriage of like their strengths. Like, it's a great collaboration. But then you've got something like this where you're kind of like, well, how does that, why? Like, I knew what this set's contents were before I bought it, but I guess like I was kind of hoping that like James would have like put in a little bit of effort to like maybe design the spoon or the fork or something like that. It's probably not realistic, you know, given the limited run of 140 to have expected like James to design James Brand to have designed like spoon and fork just for this set. But there's also this thing where just because you can make a thing or you have to make some compromises to hit a certain price point, maybe you shouldn't do that. And when I say that, I mean, it's because I feel like James Brand's positioning is always like, yeah, expensive stuff, but it's worth it and it's well designed. And that, you know, again, I think you see is reflected in the two different, you know, kind of collaborations that I've shown you here. But even if they didn't do that, when they chose to partner with Roark, and Roark chose to send, I'm not saying that this is Roark's role, like I mean, they collaborated together, so they had to say in what goes in here. But when whoever made the decision to include drop ship, lowest common denominator, Alibaba junk, with no incremental added value to it, and then ask the asking price for this, that is not a good collaboration. It's not clear what, like why these are here. I don't understand how like a brand that's kind of built on the idea, I'm talking from James' perspective here, not that it's all on them, like, you know, like good design, premium, good whatever, you know, would choose to either partner with a company that's going to do this, or like would choose to be part of like, this is, yeah, we're cool with releasing this at this price point here. And when you pick it up and it just feels noticeably cheap, there's no design premium, there's no marketing premium, there's no brand premium, and conversely, like I just kind of walk away with like, man, that sucked. I won't say it's a cash grab, but I will say it's disappointing. So, with that out of the way, if you're in a market for a mess kit, well, look, I'm not like a mess kit reviewer, but I will tell you what you should do. If you like the Hell Gap, go buy the Hell Gap. I like it. It's a good knife. There are cheaper knives out there, but I think if you like the design of this, you're going to be happy with this one. And like I said, I like some of James' stuff. And then go out and buy yourself these Snow Peak collapsible titanium chopsticks. They are a far superior solution. These are great. I have a couple of different pairs of them. They come with their own sheath. Also comes with a neck lanyard if for some reason you need that. Go out and buy yourself the Snow Peak you know, titanium spoon and fork, or, you know, go out to like your local shop retailer and just get like whatever, you know, there's a bunch of different, you know, manufacturers, some really nice like titanium, you know, like cutlery out there, you know, Vargo or whatever. Like, yes, it's going to be better quality than this stuff. Absolutely. You can't, it's hard to imagine you could get anything cheaper than this, and you'll still come out ahead. And if you have money, go out, and if you're like me, I believe you should get like some sort of like little spatula, or get just a little wooden spatula or something like that. And that's going to be a much better mess kit. You know, you get yourself like a cheap pouch for $5, or just throw it in one of your many EDC pouches. If you're a carry fanatic, you know, like me, you have a bunch of pouches laying around. And that's going to be a much better mess kit for you than this thing here. So with that out of the way, if you have any questions about this kit, go ahead and drop those in the comments below, and if I can, I will answer them. And if you have any thing you'd like me to review, I guess hopefully bags, but you know, maybe about the carry world, go and leave those in the comments below, and if I can, I will review them. Thank you very much.